Imagine you work part-time in the electronics department of like a massive chain store.
Okay.
You love the job, mostly because your best friend since kindergarten works right next to you at the tablet counter.
Oh, that sounds like a fun setup.
Right, it's great. But then, one afternoon, you see it. Instead of processing a returned iPad, your friend they just slip it right into their backpack.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. What do you do? I mean, you know stealing is a crime, but this is your oldest friend in the world.
That is rough.
It is. Now, let's change the scenario just a bit. What if your friend just called in sick so they could go to a party that you're both missing because of work?
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
Right. Is that little lie fundamentally different from stealing an iPad?
I mean, that is the absolute definition of an ethical dilemma. It's muddy, it's highly personal, and it happens on a massive scale across the business world every single day.
Which is exactly why we are unpacking it today. Welcome to our deep dive into Module 9, Ethics and Privacy Concerns.
Glad to be here for this one.
We are basing our discussion today on the frameworks laid out in ConnectMaster Management Information Systems by Richard Tedmon and Casey Wilhelm. That's the McGraw-Hill 2026 edition.
The essential playbook.
Exactly. So whether you are a student at the Dr. Sampak College of Business at Tarleton State University tackling these concepts for the first time, or, a working professional dealing with these exact dilemmas at your desk, we are thrilled to have you here.
Absolutely. But before we jump into the deep end of privacy and corporate ethics, we really need to build a bridge from our previous discussion.
Oh, right. Module 8.
Yeah. So in our last deep dive on Module 8, we broke down social media information systems. And we established that these systems rely on 5 core components to function.
Hardware, software, data, procedures, and people.
You got it. And we spent a lot of time on that data component specifically.
We did. We looked at how companies use predictive AI and just massive data collection to actively measure and influence what consumers buy, watch, and click.
Right. And that is the critical link to today. Because Module 8 showed us the incredible power businesses have to track consumers and employees to increase revenue.
Right.
But today's deep dive asks the unavoidable follow-up question. Just because a business possesses the technological capability to track everything, does that mean they should?
Yeah, how do we balance the drive for profit with the fundamental right to privacy? It's a massive question.
It really is.
And to you listening, if you find yourself getting as invested in these questions as we are, please take a second to like, subscribe, follow, and share. Dropping a comment down below is honestly the absolute best way to stay updated with the course material and jump right into the ongoing conversation we are having here.
For sure. So to figure out that balance between profit and privacy, we first have to define the rules of the game.
Right, the terminology.
Yeah. People tend to use the words morals, ethics, and law interchangeably, but in a business context, they operate very differently.
How so?
Well, morals refer to the actual behaviors, the specific actions a society dictates as right or wrong.
Okay.
But ethics provide the framework. Ethics give you the reasoning that allows a person or a business to navigate complex situations virtuously.
I always get stuck on where the law fits into all of this, though. Like, if we have a robust legal system, why do managers even need to worry about ethical frameworks? Shouldn't we just look at what's legal and just stop there?
That sounds logical, but the problem with relying purely on the legal system is speed. The law is incredibly slow. Think about how long it takes a complex data privacy case to actually reach the Supreme Court, or for Congress to draft, debate, and pass legislation.
It takes years, sometimes decades.
Exactly. Now compare that to how fast artificial intelligence, biometric tracking, and digital surveillance have evolved just in the last 2 years alone.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy. So if the law is the posted speed limit, ethics is knowing that it's actually unsafe to drive the speed limit during a massive snowstorm.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you have to read the room, not just the rule book. The speed limit sign didn't update for the blizzard, just like the law hasn't updated for the latest AI surveillance tools.
That is a perfect way to look at it. And inside a company, reading the room means clearly distinguishing between illegal computer behavior and organizational policy violations.
Because they aren't the same thing.
Not at all. Illegal activity is criminal. So if an employee steals physical hardware, pirates expensive software, infringes on copyright, or intentionally distributes a network virus, Those are matters for law enforcement.
But a policy violation is different. Like, if I'm shopping online or checking my social media or playing a game on company time using my work laptop, I haven't committed a crime.
Right, the police aren't going to raid your cubicle for playing solitaire.
Exactly, but I have violated the trust and the specific standards set by my employer.
Yeah, and managing those policy violations requires nuanced judgment. Since the laws lag behind the technology, many organizations create boards of ethics to navigate this gray area.
Right, they need a structured way to look at things.
Exactly. And the text outlines 5 dimensions of ethical behavior they have to consider. Things like information rights, copyright and IP, control and accountability, establishing standards, and quality of life.
That's a lot to juggle.
It is, which is why they use 5 basic ethical principles to make decisions: moral rights, virtue, distributive justice, the universalist principle, and the utilitarian principle.
Let's ground some of those principles in reality, because this is where the textbook theory actually hits the manager's desk.
Let's do it.
The source material presents a classic, brutal business scenario. Imagine you are on a management committee tasked with downsizing 15 employees.
Oof. Always a tough spot.
Right. The company is struggling, and cutting these salaries will save the business, potentially allowing the remaining employees to keep their jobs and maybe even get a raise later. How do you choose who gets cut?
Well, if you apply the utilitarian principle, you are looking for the greatest good for the greatest number. In short, the ends justify the means.
So the ends of saving the company justify the painful means of 15 people losing their livelihoods.
Exactly. But you have to be careful with that.
Yeah, I see the logic, but doesn't the ends justify the means approach risk crushing individual privacy in the name of corporate efficiency?
It definitely can.
Like, what if a manager suggests we look at everyone's personal health data or whether they have young children at home to decide who gets fired? They can argue that it's for the greater good of the company's healthcare costs.
And that is exactly where the principle of moral rights pushes back. This principle argues there are fundamental human rights and values that must always be upheld, regardless of the outcome.
Right.
Using someone's private, non-work medical information against them violates a fundamental boundary, even if it saves the company money.
So you have these two completely valid ethical lenses, and they're pointing the manager in opposite directions.
Yep. And if you bring in a third lens, distributive justice, the picture changes yet again.
How does that one work?
This principle argues that rewards or punishments should be distributed equitably based strictly on effort and productivity.
Okay, so merit-based.
Exactly. So under distributive justice, you ignore the personal data entirely, you ignore the concept of the greater good, and you strictly look at output. The 15 lowest performers over the last 4 quarters are the ones let go.
It's a stark reminder that there is rarely a single correct answer in management, just, different frameworks for justifying your decisions.
Yeah, but failing to establish any framework at all can lead to catastrophe. The sources highlight the 2016 Wells Fargo scandal as a primary cautionary tale.
Oh man, that was a huge mess.
It really was. It wasn't just a few bad apples. It was a systemic failure of ethics. Executive management applied extreme pressure and set impossibly aggressive sales goals.
And to meet those quotas, employees basically opened millions of unauthorized bank and credit card accounts in their customers' names.
Which ultimately cost the company $3 billion in settlements and inflicted immeasurable damage to their reputation.
Wow.
So to prevent that kind of fallout, the text outlines a concrete 5-step action plan for managers facing an ethical dilemma.
What's the first step?
It starts with getting the facts. Then moving to step 2, determining who is actually affected.
Let's apply this to a specific, highly toxic workplace scenario. Say a group of employees come to you, the manager, and report that a coworker is actively bullying someone using racial slurs on social media.
Okay, yeah.
And worse, they are doing it during work hours while connected to the company network.
All right, so step 1, you gather the network logs and the social media screenshots to establish the facts. You don't just guess.
Right.
Then step 2, you look at who is affected, obviously the victim, but also the broader team's morale and the company's public image. Step 3 is searching for precedents. Has the company handled this before?
It's step 4 of the action plan that I find really compelling, though, listing your options and testing them.
Oh, the Twitter test.
Yes, the Twitter test. You list out your possible management decisions. Maybe you consider just giving the bully a quiet verbal warning to avoid a fuss.
Sure.
Then you ask yourself, would I be comfortable if my final management decision was posted publicly on Twitter for the whole world to see?
And if the thought of the public reading your decision makes you sweat, you have definitely chosen the wrong option.
Yeah, a quiet warning for racial harassment definitely fails the Twitter test.
It absolutely does. Then finally, step 5 is making the decision and preparing for unintended consequences.
Makes sense.
Now, notice how dealing with this workplace behavior, like monitoring a network to catch harassment, leads us right into the broader mechanics of digital privacy.
Right, because we're talking about tracking people.
Exactly. If you are on company Wi-Fi, the company has the right to watch. But when you're at home, browsing the internet on your own time, what rights do you actually have, and how are companies legally tracking you?
Well, we tend to think the government is the one watching everything. But in the U.S., the First Amendment protects freedom of speech, which means government filtering of the internet is incredibly restricted. The Supreme Court has repeatedly struck down major child protection acts because they overstep First Amendment rights. The laws that do stick are very specific, like the DMCA for protecting digital copyrights, the ECPA for emails and VoIP, and the Patriot or USA Freedom Act for terrorist surveillance.
Exactly. And because government filtering is so limited, the corporate world has largely taken over the surveillance space. They heavily track user data for profit.
Right.
This brings us to the mechanics of how they do it, specifically through cookies.
I think most of us know cookies are like small text files a website stores on your computer, but the sources differentiate between session cookies and persistent cookies.
Right. Session cookies are temporary. They live in your device's active memory and vanish the second you close your browser.
So they are the reason a website remembers what you put in your shopping cart while you navigate to the checkout page.
Exactly. Persistent cookies, however, live on your hard drive until a specific expiration date. They track your preferences, your IP address, and your surfing behavior over days, months, or even years.
But the real privacy concern isn't just how long they last, it's who is placing them. A first-party cookie comes directly from the site you chose to visit. It remembers your login so you don't have to type it every time. But a third-party cookie, this is the mechanism that feels incredibly invasive.
Let's break down how that mechanism actually works, because it's brilliant and slightly disturbing.
Go for it.
When you visit a popular news website, that site doesn't just load articles. It loads invisible pixel tags and advertisement from servers owned by massive data brokers.
Okay.
When that ad loads, the data broker server places a persistent cookie on your machine.
Wait, so I didn't even click the ad, but the broker still dropped a cookie on me.
Correct. Then, an hour later, you visit a completely different website, maybe a blog about mountain biking.
Right.
That blog happens to use the same data broker to serve its ads. The broker server recognizes the cookie it gave you on the news site. Suddenly, it links the two visits. It now knows you read political news and you like mountain biking. It builds a mosaic of your identity across thousands of unrelated websites.
But surely they need my permission to do this. Like, legitimate companies aren't using malware or spyware like keystroke loggers or packet sniffers to steal my data?
Well, they don't need spyware because they use psychological design to get your permission. This is the critical difference between opt-in and opt-out systems.
Oh, yeah.
In an opt-in system, the permission box asking to track your data is empty. You have to actively check the box to agree.
Which, let's be honest, almost no one will ever do if given the choice.
Precisely. So companies utilize opt-out systems. The tracking box is pre-checked by default, usually buried in a massive terms of service agreement.
Right, the ones nobody reads.
Exactly. By simply doing nothing and clicking accept, you legally agree to let them harvest your data. You have to actively hunt down the privacy settings to uncheck the box. It relies entirely on consumer fatigue.
And all of that harvested data feeds into massive corporate databases. The source material categorizes this big data collection into 3 distinct methods.
What are they?
First, there's direct inquiry, where we just hand them the data via a survey or like a loyalty app. Then there's indirect tracking, which is the third-party cookie mechanism we just explored. And finally, third-party purchase, where companies literally just buy your profile from those data brokers.
And this data is incredibly valuable. It represents a modern form of intellectual property.
Right.
While copyrights protect original works of authorship like books and music, and patents protect physical inventions and processes, these massive databases of human behavior are the true gold mines of the digital age.
But they also seem like a massive liability. The text brings up examples that honestly feel like a ticking time bomb.
Like what?
Like, millions of people are voluntarily paying to upload their actual DNA to sites like 23andMe to find out about their ancestry. We are digitizing electronic medical records, EMRs, putting everyone's health history onto servers.
Yeah, that's sensitive stuff.
Right. If a data broker gets hacked, It's not just my browsing history that leaks, it's my genetic code.
It raises a vital question for modern management. How do companies protect this level of sensitive data?
Good question.
The reality is that over half of all major data breaches are not caused by a brilliant hacker breaking through a firewall. They are caused by human error.
Really? Just human error?
Yeah, ignorance or negligence. An employee falls for a phishing email, or leaves an unencrypted laptop in a rideshare, or just misconfigures a database password.
Wait, let me pause you there. If human error is the primary cause of these breaches, why is the major corporate solution to move everything to third-party cloud storage like Amazon Web Services? AWS is still run by human beings, right? Aren't companies just handing the problem to someone else?
It's a fair question. But the difference is the economy of scale regarding security.
What do you mean?
A mid-sized hospital cannot afford to hire a team of elite cybersecurity engineers to monitor their local servers 24/7. But Amazon, Microsoft, and Google can.
I see.
By moving data to the cloud, companies are trading the high risk of distributed local human negligence for the concentrated, highly automated security protocols of a tech giant.
Okay, I understand why a hospital moves to the cloud, but how do you and I protect ourselves on a personal level today?
The sources outline a few highly practical defenses. First, use a password manager. It generates and stores unique, complex passwords for every site, so if one site is breached, your other accounts are safe.
That's a good tip.
Second, utilize antivirus software, but make sure you understand how it works.
Right. There's a distinction here in the text between signature-based and heuristic-based detection. Signature-based is sort of like a digital wanted poster. The software knows the specific code of a known virus and blocks it.
But what if it's a brand new virus that doesn't have a wanted poster yet?
Right. The unknown threats.
That's where heuristic-based detection comes in. It doesn't look at the code, it looks at the behavior. If a completely unknown file suddenly tries to quietly rewrite your operating system registry, the heuristic engine flags it as malicious, based purely on its actions.
That is fascinating. It's like a security guard who doesn't recognize a visitor's face, but tackles them anyway because they're trying to pick the lock on the vault.
Exactly. Another defense is using a virtual private network, a VPN. This hides your IP address by encrypting your connection and running it through a secure server.
Making it much harder for those third-party cookies to track your physical location.
Precisely. Finally, you should regularly monitor your FICO credit score by requesting your free annual report from the 3 major agencies, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian.
Those are solid personal defenses against traditional tracking. But the source material also dives into the frontier of all this, which is artificial intelligence. AI completely shifts the privacy landscape.
It really does. AI has a dual nature in the business world. On one side, it's an incredible tool. Managers can use AI to instantly cross-reference company policies or even run role-playing scenarios to practice handling the ethical dilemmas we discussed earlier.
But the flip side is the surveillance capability. AI doesn't just read spreadsheets. It can pull data from the Internet of Things, the smart thermometer in your house, the Wi-Fi connections your phone makes as you drive to work, the digital cameras at intersections.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It weaves all these disparate data points into a startlingly accurate mosaic of your daily life.
And companies use this for predictive audience, targeting the exact moment and context where you are most vulnerable to an advertisement. AI also introduces the threat of deepfakes.
Oh, right. Synthetic audio or video files?
Yeah, they make it appear as though someone is saying or doing something they never did, which is a massive tool for fraud.
With AI evolving this fast, who is actually stepping in to regulate it? Because we established earlier that the law moves at a glacial pace.
We are seeing 2 very different approaches globally. The European Union has taken a hardline preemptive approach with the EU Artificial Intelligence Act. They rigidly categorize AI systems into 4 risk levels: unacceptable, high, limited, and minimal.
And they don't mess around with the unacceptable category. Something like a government-run social scoring system, which uses AI to judge citizens' behavior, is banned outright in the EU.
Contrast that with the United States. The U.S. federal government currently relies on a non-binding executive order regarding AI.
So it's essentially a set of strong suggestions for tech companies rather than strict enforceable laws.
Yeah, exactly. But individual states aren't waiting for the federal government. The text highlights Colorado's Artificial Intelligence Act, the CAIA.
Right.
This law specifically restricts the use of AI in consequential decisions, like deciding who gets hired for a job or who gets approved for a housing loan.
So the CAIA is designed to prevent algorithmic bias. For example, if a bank uses an AI to approve mortgages, that AI might analyze historical data and learn to deny loans to specific zip codes.
Right, it learns bad habits.
Yeah. Even if the AI isn't explicitly looking at race or income, the zip code acts as a proxy, effectively recreating digital redlining. Laws like the CAIA force companies to audit these systems to ensure they aren't silently discriminating.
So bringing this all together for you listening, if you are a business student stepping into a management role or a professional currently trying to implement these tools, how do you handle AI ethically?
It's a huge responsibility.
It is. Future managers must establish a strict, transparent code of conduct for AI usage. Transparency is non-negotiable. If a customer is interacting with an AI chatbot, or if an employee's resume is being screened by an algorithm, you must disclose that fact immediately.
And for those consequential decisions, the hiring, the firing, the loan approvals, you have to keep a human in the loop.
You absolutely do. An algorithm can provide a recommendation, but you cannot abdicate your ethical responsibility to a machine. When things go wrong, a manager cannot simply throw their hands up and blame the computer. You have to own the final decision.
Because at the end of the day, ethics requires a human conscience. Well, that feels like the perfect place to wrap up this incredibly deep topic. I want to genuinely thank you for spending your time with us today and joining this deep dive into the complex world of information ethics.
It's a landscape that is constantly shifting beneath our feet. But as we've seen, the core principles of ethical management remain critical anchors.
And as speaking of anchors, I'm going to ask you one more time to please like, subscribe, follow, and share this session. More importantly, leaving a comment is the perfect way to answer today's discussion question.
Here's what we want you to think about and answer in the comments. Thinking back to the ethical principles we discussed, specifically the utilitarian approach versus the moral rights approach, which principle do you think best justifies a company using AI to track your online behavior to serve you highly targeted ads?
Oh, that's a great question.
Is the convenience and economic efficiency worth the invisible surveillance? Let us know. I'm very curious to see how you argue this one.
It's going to be a fascinating debate in the comments section. As for our next deep dive, we're shifting gears to Module 10, e-commerce. Ever wonder how clicking a single, simple buy now button on your phone instantly orchestrates a massive, invisible global supply chain? We'll uncover all those hidden gears next time. Until then, remember, in a digital world where a company has the technical power to track your every move, the difference between an ethical manager and a massive corporate scandal usually comes down to reading the room. We'll see you next time.